Friends, welcome back. Thank you for joining me. Episode 74. So today I'd like to do another episode of Let's Talk Tech. Specifically, let's talk about Copilot's new, at the time of this recording, Help Me Write feature. I really do feel like it's an improvement over their previous feature, but let's talk about that now. So basically, Microsoft just made a significant upgrade to Copilot in Outlook, in my opinion. And as a freelancer who spends a lot of time in my inbox, I'm genuinely excited about it. I feel like the new Help Me Write feature is a major improvement over the previous draft with Copilot option. And once you add the personalized instructions like we've discussed in a previous post in the past, this feature becomes incredibly powerful for handling the constant stream of emails that come with freelance work. So let me show you why this matters and how to make it work for you. So you're probably asking something, what is the difference between draft with Copilot and Help Me Write? They both sound like they do similar things. I would agree that they both sound like they do similar things, but if you used the previous draft with Copilot feature in Outlook, you know that it was, maybe you'd call it fine, and maybe you'd call it closer to not fine. Using that feature, you could technically ask Copilot to write an email, and it would generate something. But I found that it was often very generic, informal, and I would have to spend a decent amount of time editing it to make it actually sound like me and address what I needed to say. In fact, I felt like it would take so much time to adjust the email to something that I wanted that I found that using the feature wasn't adding anything positive for me. It wasn't saving me time, and it wasn't making my emails sound better. Therefore, I personally stopped using it because I didn't find it helpful for the most part. However, I have now changed my tune. I feel like the new Help Me Write feature is definitely smarter. It's more conversational, and I feel like it requires significantly less edits on my part to adjust the output from Copilot and Outlook to something that I actually want to use. So what makes it better? Well, Microsoft says that you can use more natural prompting. I don't think that I've personally changed my prompting that much. I think that the tool got better. But according to Microsoft, instead of having to use rigid instructions, you can have more of a conversational interaction with Copilot about what you want to say. I do find that the interface is very aligned to that option. The way that it's presented does make it easy to make it a more conversational approach to helping you with your emails with Copilot. It does also have better context awareness. It understands the email thread that you're responding to, if there is an email thread involved. And it can reference previous messages to craft more relevant replies in that example. I also feel like it does a nice job with tone, where it does capture my tone appropriately. Again, I have put in the custom instructions. I do think that that helps. I do think that overall, making sure that you have inputted your custom instructions is a big one, because basically Microsoft is allowing you to teach Copilot about your personal communication style and give insight into your business and your preferences. So every email that it drafts is aligned to what you'd actually write. And for freelancers, this means less time editing AI-generated emails and more time doing the work that actually pays the bills. So we have covered this in a previous video, but I just want to quickly go over how to add a custom personalization if you did miss that one. The magic that happens from using this feature is really amazing, and it definitely is worth doing. You basically want to give Copilot some insight on your specific writing style, your business details, and preferences so that it doesn't generate bland corporate or AI sounding emails that you were going to potentially send. So again, if you didn't previously do this, or if you just want to update the settings, you do want to be in New or Web Outlook. I do not believe that this feature works in Classic Outlook. So you want to open Outlook, and then you are going to select the Settings button from the upper menu, and then you are going to select Copilot from the left-hand menu and look for the personalization option. So under the personalization section, you're going to want to add instructions that Copilot can reference every time that it helps you write an email. So if you look at the screen here, you're going to see what I entered and what I decided to use to help Copilot better produce the emails in the style and voice that I want it to provide. So you can include things like your communication style, your business details, maybe some common scenarios if you have them, and then any preferences. Like if you want to avoid certain phrases, you can give that information there so that Copilot knows what you would prefer. Obviously, there are several ways that freelancers can use this Help Me Write to their advantage. I'll give you a few ideas, but I'm sure if you just think of it, you'll think of many yourself. So, for instance, you can use this when responding to a project inquiry. Say that you wake up to an email from a potential client about your services, your availability, and your rates, and that you've had several inquiries this week and you're tired of writing the same response over and over again. So obviously, without using the Help Me Write option, if you don't have an email template set up, and we did talk about setting those up in another podcast episode, so if you're interested, be sure to check that out. The one on email templates, you could search for it. So without the Help Me Write option or without email templates, you're going to basically open a blank email and spend 10 to 15 minutes crafting a response that's, professional, enthusiastic, answers all their questions, and positions you as the right person for the job. You're probably going to have to dig through previous emails to make sure that you're saying the same thing consistently, and you're going to end up having to spend a little time to ensure that you've got the tone right. But with the Help Me Write option, all you have to do is click the Copilot button in Outlook, and then in the Help Me Write box, simply type that you want to respond to this inquiry and then give the details of your response. Maybe you're only available starting next month. You want to give that information on your rate, and then you probably want to also ask Copilot to help you with 2 or 3 clarifying questions about their timeline, their target audience, and whether or not they have existing brand guidelines. So that would be definitely one good use of the Help Me Write feature in Copilot. And if done correctly, it should help you about 80 to 90% of the way to get ready to send that email. Now, another example could be following up on unpaid invoices. Say a client hasn't paid an invoice and now it's, 10 days overdue. And you need to send a reminder that's firm but not aggressive, and also professional but not cold. I always find these very difficult to write. You just feel awkward. So without the Help Me Write feature, I tend to agonize over every word that I'm going to write to see if it sounds just like it should. I feel like I'm either being too pushy and maybe damaging the relationship without intending it to. But on the other hand, I don't want to be too soft or casual because then they may continue to avoid paying it. So when I have these emails, they usually take me quite a while to write if I'm starting from scratch. But luckily, Copilot is trained for this and ready to go. If you tell Copilot that you want to send a polite but firm email that a specific invoice for a certain amount of money is now overdue, it will likely do a great job at wording something that is professional and smooth. I've found that it is definitely professional and clear, but also not apologetic. I really do appreciate that about Copilot. And I find that when I review it, I do need to make a little bit of an adjustment, but it may be only, a sentence or two before I'm able to send it. It's definitely a time saver over me starting from scratch. Now, the other situation that it's good for, and it also aligns with that, Copilot is good when you're feeling awkward about your writing. It often happens when you're declining a project that you don't want. So imagine someone reaches out to you about a project that you just don't feel like it's a good fit. Maybe it's outside of your expertise, the budget is too low, or you just don't have the bandwidth. And you want to say no politely without burning bridges. Well, this is a situation similar to the last one in that when you have trouble finding the words, you obviously have trouble typing the words into an email in most situations. So you're going to spend a little bit longer than usual trying to craft a response that's gracious, but doesn't make the client feel rejected. Or maybe you are actually trying to smoothly present an alternative offer, or maybe you're even giving a referral. So with Help Me Write with Copilot, you can simply describe the situation and ask Copilot for help. And it should come back with a polite, clear email that will keep the relationship with you and the person inquiring about your availability for a project intact, because you never know when you may want to work with them in the future. So why does this all matter? Again, as a freelancer, you're always juggling multiple clients, projects, and administrative tasks. And email is one of those constant presences in your life. I don't see that going away anytime soon. I do feel like it's a realistic, necessary part of business these days. But the time that you spend on email is not always billable. So that means that every minute that you spend crafting an email is actually a minute that you're not spending on work that actually helps you generate income, or a minute that you're not spending on some leisure activity. So if you use Help Me Write with custom personalizations, It's going to save you time, and it's also going to just help you reduce that mental fatigue that we sometimes experience as freelancers. So you don't have to think through every email from scratch. You can save that mental energy for something that's a little bit more significant within your role. Now, I will say that the Help Me Write option is not the 100% solution to writing all of your emails. You are still going to need to review it and adjust it. Of course, you should always review AI-generated content to make sure that it's both accurate and representative of your voice. But with Help Me Write, you do have a strong foundation instead of a blank page. So before we sign off, I do want to give you a few tips for getting the best results. The first one goes back to prompting. And doesn't it always go back to prompting? Be specific with your prompts. The more detail that you give Copilot about what you want, the better your output is going to be. So something like write a follow-up email is not an example of a stellar prompt. It's rather vague. You probably want to use something like write a friendly follow-up to a client who hasn't responded to my proposal in a week, asking if they need any additional information. That is obviously a little bit more specific. Also, just another reminder that you do want to update your personalization instructions as you evolve. Well, I have talked you through it today, and hopefully you did update it. That is something that necessarily is not static, because your communication style may change over time, or you may start offering new services, or you may omit some services that you currently have. So be sure to keep those instructions current. It's going to save you time on the back end. Additionally, you want to think of Copilot as your assistant who's really helping you with structure, but you are definitely reviewing to add your voice and your personality to the email correspondence. So Copilot's really good at refining for structure, but that personal touch by you here and there is going to make it feel and sound more authentic. Next, don't skip the review. Copilot is very, very capable. We all know that, but it is not the solution to all of your problems. Human intervention is needed. AI can make mistakes or miss nuances, so you always want to read the email before sending. I advise editing the email before sending with your voice, as we just mentioned, but definitely take a look at it and review it, especially sections on any topics that are sensitive, like pricing, deadlines, or declining work. And then I would say you want to experiment with some tone adjustments. Sometimes the first draft doesn't feel right. Copilot, again, is a great assistant, but not perfect. So feel free to ask a second or a third time and ask Copilot to adjust the tone. It still should be faster than rewriting the email from scratch. So in summary, Copilot's Help Me Write feature in Outlook, especially with custom personalization instructions, is a genuine productivity boost for freelancers like us. It won't replace your judgment or your voice, but it should dramatically reduce the time and mental energy that you currently spend on routine email communication. So Set up your personalization instructions and then let Copilot handle the heavy lifting on your daily emails. You'll get potentially hours back every week. And as I always say, that's time you can spend on billable work, business development, or just not being glued to your inbox and doing something that you really enjoy. This is one of those small investments that pays dividends to you every single day. And I think your inbox and your sanity are going to thank you if you implement it. Thanks again for listening. If this was useful, please do like and subscribe. And I hope to see you on the next one. Take care, everyone. Bye.